And for the great finale, Ronald from Oracle has really also, we've already touched a little bit in one panel today on use cases in the medical sector, and we've already had a little bit of discussion on what you will talk about. Really, really fascinating. Again, I think it's a really great use case of AI. So I'm not going to spoil what's going to happen. Be very excited, Grant. Stage is yours, and we're looking forward.
Wow, thank you. So this is me. I've been a long time Oracle, building conversational platform for about 10 years or so, and I've moved into the healthcare space. And this is a kind of my potted history in 20 minutes. First thing is, why are we listening to the guy from Oracle? Why particularly Oracle and conversational AI? Well, Oracle, you might know, is a big database company, revenue of about 50 billion a year, and a large portion of that is tech, but there's a big portion which is applications. We have HCM, we have hospitality, financial, medical, and of course, having a conversational interface onto those things became quite an attractive option. So about 10 years ago, we were asked to start building a conversational platform, which was called Oracle Digital Assistant, which I was part of the founding team for. Then about 4 years ago, Oracle dipped into the money pot and spent 28 billion on a company called Cerner, which is a healthcare company. And about 2 years ago, Larry Ellison, the head of Oracle, came down to us and said, I want you to modernize and totally reimagine what healthcare is like. And that request came down on my shoulders and one or two others. And towards the end of the presentation, I'll show you what we've been doing in terms of reimagining healthcare with voice and conversation, because it actually turns out to be probably one of the best use cases for voice that we've worked on. So this is 10 years of my experience in 20 minutes, or 18 minutes and 31 seconds. So I shall move quickly, but I'll be here afterwards. You can buy me a drink and I'll answer questions. And if you buy me 2 drinks, I'll answer more questions. And I'll be here tomorrow as well. I've worked on many, many applications, and I've worked with many, many customers. So, you know, I'll probably refer back to healthcare, but equally this could apply anything from Costco, which is one of our biggest customers we worked on, down to our own HCM. So here's a kind of potted lessons. The first thing is, a conversational project isn't really that difficult. You know, traditionally, you built intents and entities and some dialogue flow, and you connect it up to back end. It technically wasn't that tough. However, my experience is it's a damn sight harder than you really think once you get going. And the reason why is not because of the technology, it's because language is hard. I mean, language is a thing of humor because of ambiguity, poetry, which paints pictures with metaphors and things. And this is an example that actually is one of our use cases, because the doctors can set reminders. Set a reminder for Friday. Pretty straightforward. We can probably imagine that's 2 days from now. Set a reminder for next Friday. Is that 2 days or 9 days? Probably 9 days. But if it's Thursday, it's more likely to be 9 days than if it was Sunday. If it's Sunday and you say set a reminder for next Friday, well, it could be the first Friday coming. It depends. Set a reminder to book our anniversary dinner on Friday. If I get a reminder on Friday, you should book a table. It's too late, because actually the dinner was supposed to be on Friday. That's the ambiguity. And the one that I particularly like, and I'll be honest with you, we haven't quite nailed this one yet. Set a reminder to scan her at 12 weeks. I do not need a reminder in June. That might be a reminder for 2 weeks' time, because I'm speaking to a patient who is pregnant, and it's our 12-week gestation period is when I need the reminder. That is contextual information that is not in that sentence, but only because I'm sitting in front of a patient who we've just found is pregnant. Does that give me a different timeline? So it's really difficult, and certainly the medical industry adds multiple layers of complexity on the top of that as well, because they speak in different language. Order lisinopril, 50 milligrams, BID. BID means twice a day. biidis or something like that, stands for Latin. So they have it, cabbage the vegetable, or CABG, cardio-arterial bypass graph. Our ASR, speech recognition, has to work out if we're going to get you a cabbage because you're hungry or a cabbage because your heart's packing up. So these are the challenges, and these are the things you don't think about, that once you get into it, you realize, geez, this is tougher than we thought. Probably one of the reasons I see failure is not that people go, oh, I really don't know how to do this, or this is tough. It's the people who go, I've been building apps for 20 years, you don't have to tell me what to do. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. That's the big problem. It's those people, because language is very different, and with that, it brings along a whole set of skills and processes that you maybe didn't need to use when you were building your web apps. We have the business people. Oh, we've got to build a chatbot. Okay, right, go off. What does it look like? I don't know. When it starts up, I want a menu that says, do you want to do A, B, C, D, or E? And I'm like, you've just built an IVR system there, okay? The reason it's conversational is you don't present lots of menu choices. We've had that for 20 odd years on phone systems. I'll put my hand up and say most bots are what I call crap bots, okay? There's very few good bots, and I will say that I've been responsible for some of them, and Oracle's been responsible for some of them, but mostly I think we can shoulder the responsibility that there's not really great examples, and so people have not just quite realized what a great conversational experience is like. And you've got to invest. The business will quite often say, we don't have the time to do it right, just do it to see if we kind of like chatbots. And then suddenly you've gone live with that under-trained, under-designed bot. The architects, these are the guys who would, build web apps. They don't really know that conversation design is a thing. I literally had somebody, when I said to them, do you have a conversational designer? And their answer was, we've got someone who checks the spelling and grammar. Yes, thank you. And it's easy to understand that people don't realize that all these unhappy paths that conversations bring in is a thing in which you probably spend most of your time in, and a very small time on the happy paths as well. I often tell people it goes wrong more often than it goes right. Therefore, you've got to put more effort into the wrong bit, where it gets it wrong, than the happy path. And developers, because they don't realize the complexities of language, they'll make assumptions. I literally had a code review in which someone had a piece of code that said something like, if user utterance contains, quotes, job, then execute the job change functionality. Now, that might be a reason that Steve Jobs wouldn't have got a job in Oracle, because as soon as we saw the word job, we go off and do some other process. And there was actually 9 people in Oracle with the first name Job. And I pointed that out, and they kind of, oops, we didn't think of that. But anytime you see people coding a rule in language, you'll know it breaks, because language just doesn't follow rules. And we quite often see people writing error and prompt messages themselves, developers. The best one I had was, you've exceeded the number of retries, please try again. And that, again, I'm not making this stuff up. Conversational projects don't fail because of their technology. No one ever comes to me and says, your NLP engine's rubbish, IBM's was way better, or Microsoft, or Google's, whatever. They're all much of a muchness. We're all using the same open source stuff and tweaking around the edges. They fail not because of the technology, but they fail because they've been run like any other project. And what I mean by that is, I've got to connect a back end, let's do that stuff first. And we know that that back end is going to be triggered by you saying something. We'll get there in the end. And then they work back from the API. And then what they do is they connect that up to do a couple of sample phrases, and they say, well, that's fine. I can trigger the functionality from a specific command. As long as I know the word to use, I can trigger it, and I can show it to my boss that it works. And of course, when you give it to your real users, they don't know the real magic words to use, and they don't follow the script that the developer's using. So they fail because they've been dealing or building it like on any other technology project as well. So they don't understand things like caring and feeding, don't understand the process of gathering data and utterances, then cleaning those. Some work I did for Costco, they were taking the conversation logs and dumping them straight into the NLP. And you would sometimes see questions that were people's whole kind of history. It was like, hey, I've just moved house from Florida, and when I got there and we moved in, we realized the fridge is broken and we held all this food, blah, blah, blah. And at the end it was, do you have any fridges in stock? But they put the whole sentence in. So we got to train the model about people's holidays and stuff, which was absolutely useless. They also don't quite realize that, and this is both the power and the scary part about conversational projects, is there's almost no UI. You have a box, type in anything you want. So at the point in your pizza bot, you're ordering pizza, you could ask anything. And the point it says what size of pizza, you can go back and change something. Oh, can you stick anchovies on the pizza as well? Well, we don't have a pizza size anchovies. You can literally do anything at any point, and that's the thing that people don't always prepare for. LLMs are incredible. They most definitely are life-changing, and they allow you to screw up things in a fraction of the time from building more traditional bots. I want to say, I do believe that LLMs are the future for us all, and you'll see in my demo how we're using LLMs in our healthcare assistant. But that doesn't absolve you from all the standard software best practices of design, testing, requirements, evaluation, controls, and everything else that goes on it as well. It just means if you don't do it, you can mess up a lot quicker. It seems like the most obvious thing in a software project, but believe me, it's not. People tend to test the bot to show that it works. I've got the order pizza flow. I will order pizza. I'll say small, medium, or large. I'll do multiple toppings, all that stuff. What they don't test is all the stuff that is the unhappy path. And they don't test to break it. On the digital assistant we're working on, it's also the range of testings. We have something at 30,000 NLP tests. But it's not just testing 30,000 phrases go to the right intent. It's also that a whole bunch of those intents don't go, or those phrases don't go to intents. We also pick phrases that are deliberately trying to confuse the bot. So you've got order medication, okay? Will it understand order pizza? And it actually turned out we had order pizza and it resolved to order medication. And we thought, that's wrong. And then we had a philosophical debate that if you're starving, then having pizza is a kind of medication. It can cure you. And it was kind of interesting debates, but of course something like order a car or order a window, it shouldn't resolve. And those are the types of tests. We also have entity tests to make sure we can slot entity values like names, because sometimes those are problems. So we have like 80,000 tests to test that in different sentences we can resolve these things as well. And we also have what we call flow tests. So if we go into the bot, we start on this screen, we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this. Do we still get there and go through all the right points and not break? We have those flow tests as well. Okay, Mr. Know-it-all. You've told us what everyone else is doing wrong. What do you think you're doing right in your clinical digital assistant? Well, this is it. There are three kind of screens. The first is our home screen, which is a kind of bringing together timely information. Who's your next appointment? Did they have any abnormal results? Or unsigned notes. What's an unsigned note? This is the cool part. The second screen. When you go to see the doctor, that doctor spends about 2 hours a day typing up the notes of what you guys have been discussing. What we do is on a mobile app, the mobile app sits on the desk and listens to the conversation. We use large language models to work out who's a doctor, who's a clinician, who's a doctor, who's a patient. And then we take that and we summarize that information to what's called a SOAP note. SOAP stands for subjective, objective, assessment, and plan. So subjective is, oh, doctor, my back's sore and it hurts when I do this. And objective is measuring your temperature. You've got a click in your shoulder. Assessment is, oh, I think you're suffering from sciatica. And the plan would be, we're going to give you some painkillers. We're going to send you to a physiotherapist. So it will summarize that into the SOAP notes. ready for the clinician to sign it and say, yeah, that's exactly what we talked about. That will then go into the medical notes without them having to write it up. And it will also give the proposed actions. Do you want to order paracetamol? Should we set up a follow-up appointment with a physiotherapist? And should we set up a follow-up appointment to see you in 5 weeks' time? And the clinician can go, yep, let's do all those, bang. And it's done it. So that's our generative AI. We're using it in a very controlled way. It's not diagnosing, it's not replacing the doctor. It's meaning the doctor gets back to what they do best, which is working with the patients and not doing the thing that he hates, which is writing up notes for 2 hours a day. So, by the magic of video, if I press the right button, there's a little 2 or 3 minute demo of what this looks like. There should be sound with it at some point. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the to-do list. So the doctor can go
sorted by priority, then due date descending. You can edit, delete, or mark as complete. To identify the to-do, say its number.
So one of the things you'll notice is it speaks out. You can turn this off, but the clinician might not always be looking. He might be over here inspecting the patient, so it can read out to him.
Your last appointment for today is at 11:30 p.m.
And can you bring up my schedule?
Here are the 25 appointments matching today. Checked in, arrived or booked.
Open the first patient.
Here's the summary for G. Wolf.
Can you read this out to me?
I'm showing the patient summary for G. Wolf, female, age 55 years. Last seen today at 8 a.m. Active problems are pneumonia, benign essential hypertension, hypercholesterolemia, type 2 diabetes mellitus.
Can you show me the last note?
I found one document which is for internal medicine office clinic note from Monday, February 26th at 8 a.m.
And can I have a look at her vitals?
Here are the vitals for today. You can tell me a name to see the history.
Has she ever suffered from hyperlipidemia?
Hyperlipidemia is not on their problem list.
So that's the clinician familiarising themselves with the patient. First of all, before maybe the patient comes in. So it's going through and checking the medical records. Next thing we'll show is they would start a recording.
Medications. To see the details, tap the item or say the number.
Metformin.
Here are the details for metformin 500 milligrams oral tablet.
Can you start recording our appointment, please?
So this is when we would start recording the encounter. And for the reasons of speed, I don't record it, but then we go back to the generated notes and you can tap and show my unsigned notes, because they don't go into the healthcare record system until the doctor signs it.
Here's the office visit note for yesterday at 8 a.m.
So what you saw there was, and quite obvious hopefully, but mobile app, very much multimodal in that the doctor, if they're sitting there, can press the buttons and select things, absolutely fine. But voice-driven also. And the audible is important as well, because the voice was particularly important for a number of reasons. Like a real assistant, they can just ask questions in natural language. There was also things like they could select from lists in different ways. Show the first patient, show Grace Wolf. So they're not driven by, again, it's very much natural language. The generation side of things was the actual conversation. We're using LLMs in a number of places here. Another example where we're using LLMs is when I show a list, sometimes it's very challenging to work out what list item the doctor said. So for example, if I show a list of results and the first one is complete blood count, doctors never say complete blood count, they say CBCs. So we've got to match CBCs to complete blood count. And there are millions of those different things. I could say, if I look at a problem list and it says lumbago, the doctor might say, let's have a look at his lower back pain. Now, traditionally in software terms, we were doing that by string matching, which wouldn't work. Turns out LLMs are pretty good at that. And so we're using LLMs in a very controlled manner, not some kind of, hey, we'll defer all medical decisions off to the doctor. So what did we have in place that's made this successful? We're actually just going through the beta 2 stage right this week. We've got the right team, okay? I've got a team of fantastic architects and developers and conversational architects, conversation designers as well. So we've got all the right people in place and the processes. My job is this one throat to choke. My job is to sit there and go, is this conversational? Where will this fail? And sometimes we're willing to live with elements of where it's not going to be perfect. But that decision will always come down to me as well. And things like test coverage is all down to me. As I mentioned, we're using LLMs very much in a controlled manner. The generation of these SOAP notes, again, we could get it wrong. That's part of our beta testing. But it will come to the clinician for them to decide, is that a good summary? And if not, they edit it. It's a first cut. And that's no different from what might happen today if they have a medical secretary who writes up based on transcriptions. But as I say, we're also using things like LLMs for very smart list selection, to filter lists when people give very particular requests, like, hey, show me all my appointments tomorrow that are going to be less than 15 minutes because I just want to do a quick meetings first. So that becomes a little bit easier to do with LLMs. We also have some dynamic use cases. When it comes to ordering something like rubber gloves or an X-ray, it turns out that ordering an X-ray for one hospital might be a different set of attributes and features that are needed for an X-ray for somebody else. And ordering something like an appointment at the physio also requires different information. And there are thousands of these things you can order. So what we do is we generate conversations dynamically based on back-end data that comes from the catalog that says, hey, when you order an X-ray, I need to know the location, the time, the priority, and which part of the body. And we will dynamically generate screens for that, and then we will use LLMs to work out what entities do we need to slot. We couldn't have done that with the old technology. So, in 22 minutes and 27 seconds, I hope I've managed to distill the 10 years of conversational AI and the 18 months we've been working on Oracle Clinical Digital Assistant. If there's time for questions, I'm more than happy, but I'll hang about here if you're shy and you want to chat afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So first of all, because I've also been in the space around that time frame, and let me just say, every single slide that you saw in this first is spot on. Like, I hope you took pictures of these slides. Honestly, they should be shared widely, really, really widely. Like, thank you very much. Great presentation. We don't have any questions from the online community. We have one here, right here.
Hi, I found the demo really interesting, and it's actually a very nice use case. I was wondering, how do patients feel about having their appointment recorded? Is there any insight on that?
It's a really good, I think it's down to the clinicians to ask, but quite often they're recorded anyway, because I mentioned the doctors will write up their notes, but sometimes they're recorded and there's a people that do transcriptions, medical secretaries, who will then take the audio and type those up as well. So that's down to the clinicians. I'm on the tech side, but it's a very fair question, but I believe that, say, they're already recording in some cases, or they will ask.
Can I add a follow-up question to that? So any kind of patient-related information that is redacted before being transcribed?
Good question. So because we store the patient's medical information, we've gone through all the HIPAA and PII hoops because we have to store that information. However, we are allowed to store that information for a particular purpose. I was talking over lunch, one of the problems we have with retraining our models is we're not, strictly speaking, allowed to use that data just as us as developers to make our models better, not without jumping through multiple hoops. And it turns out that redaction is actually really difficult because you cannot just redact the person's name. If a person can be identified because they have a very unique diagnosis and a unique medication and a zip code, that also identifies them. So it almost gets to the point as our conversation logs might be something like, hello, thank you very much for visiting us. And we don't see much in between. There are ways around it, but we have to jump through hoops. We have to be certified to allow to see some of that data.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So 2 questions. One, from the answers you've given, it sounds like you're working in a US healthcare context.
Yes.
Any plans to take it outside of the US? And then second on that is, are you actually working with a healthcare provider as a patient, as a test user currently in your beta tests?
Yes, so you're right, absolutely right. We're focused on the US at the moment. However, we're already requests from all over the globe. UK, there's regular meetings with NHS around this. When Oracle, to your second question, when Oracle acquired Cerner, one of the things that we got was a whole bunch of medical people, doctors. So we actually have in our team a bunch of doctors. And so we go to them as how do you order medication? What do you do? And they'll tell us. And all our initial user studies are done with these internal doctors because they're still practicing clinicians. Part of our beta is then we've gone out with about 10 customers or 10 hospitals, and we're using that. And the next stage of beta 3, goes out to 150, and then it goes wild after that. And the interesting thing that we've got to do, though, is kind of the language changes ever so slightly between US English and UK English, not just diapers versus nappies, but how they use the word for consultant or doctor or clinician and roles that we've got to work out how we change our models as well. And that's both ASR and our NLP models.
Thank you very much, Grant.
Thank you.